Welcome to the University of Nottingham and the Department of Theology and Religious Studies, and you're watching another video in the series Why Study? With me today I've Dr. John Hoover, who's our expert in Islamic studies, and he's also an expert in the work of Ibn Taymiyyah, who is a famous Arabic historian. And John, why study Ibn Taymiyyah?
Well, Ibn Taymiyyah is well known for many reasons. Let me start with the security reasons. He is quoted as an authority by Osama bin Laden, and that tends to get people's interest immediately. And then he's also famous for having written a large work on Shiism, which is feeding into a lot of Sunni Shia polemics today. He was himself a Sunni. He lived most of his life in Damascus, and there were Shia-Sunni tensions in Damascus at that time. He also wrote the largest refutation of Christianity in the whole Islamic tradition. He's written a refutation of Aristotelian logic, and coming out of this, he's quite a modern figure, actually, in terms of his epistemology and the way in which he approaches texts and so on. He's written a very huge work arguing that the revelation of Islam agrees with reason, so the agreement of revelation and reason. He's talked about Sufism and the spirituality of Islam, and he is well known for his critique of saint worship, shrine worship, or the shrine cult. So he covers all kinds of things, and there are different groups of Muslims and non-Muslims today who have taken interest in his work on any one of these counts and gotten quite into his thought. But he has something to say about a lot of different things. He stands about midway between the beginning of Islam and the present day. He lived in the late 1200s, early 1300s. He died in 1328. So standing at that juncture, halfway between the beginning and the present of the Islamic tradition, and then having captured the interest of so many people today, that makes him a very fascinating figure to study.
So, in other words, here is someone who in Islam is as significant in the range of his work as Augustine or Aquinas is in the Christian tradition.
Or even more so. I like to say sometimes, if you walk the streets of Cairo, you can find Ibn Taymiyyah's works, or especially the works of his disciple Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya, who writes a bit more poetically and more beautifully. You find them in almost any Islamic bookshop, where you're not going to find Augustine and Aquinas in any bookshop in the UK.
Yes, unfortunately.
So there's a sense in which Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya, his student, are more present in centers like Cairo and.
So studying him is not just studying the historical thought in the way that we might study the historical thought of some great thinker in the past. It's actually studying a living force in Islamic understanding today.
Yes, studying Ibn Taymiyyah is indeed studying a living force in the Islamic tradition, the present-day Islam.
To what extent is Ibn Taymiyyah today, we spoke earlier about him being a living force. Mm-hmm. What would you say is the most salient of his thoughts that is active today?
He really believed firmly that the religion of Islam was rational and agreed with reason, and he worked hard to show that. So he's an apologist, and I think that connects very closely with what many modern Muslims, not all modern Muslims, but many modern Muslims are seeking, is a rationalization and an attempt to explain the Quran and the tradition of the Prophet Muhammad in a way which makes sense. He's trying to make that make sense. It's reasonable.
Okay. We have tried in this short film to introduce the thought of a great thinker. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it has helped you to discover more and whet your appetite to study even more. John, it's been great having you. Thank you. Thank you for watching. And from the Department of Theology and Religious Studies here in the University of Nottingham, goodbye.
Ibn Taymiyyah he dies in Damascus, in jail in 1328. And he has been misused during the 20th century by some of the most extremist Islamists. He is quoted, for example, in the 9/11 Commission official report as being the ancestor, the spiritual ancestor of Osama bin Laden. So to work about him is also to go a little bit into a minefield. But then when you read him, you realize that those who have misused him for terrorist purposes only read texts that he wrote to call for the resistance of Syria against the invasion of the Mongols at the end of the 13th century. But they start using those texts that were texts of national resistance against an invader. They use those texts to call for the killing of unjust Muslim rulers. And so if you go to other texts written by Ibn Taymiyyah, you realize that he was the most loyal subject of the Mamluk sultans under whose authority he was living, and who were not better than the Mongols. And you realize that he is caricatured, he is reduced to just a few pages that he wrote against an enemy. And when you look at other texts, which is quite easy because you can access them on internet or on CD-ROMs, or most of his writings have been published, you realize that you have there somebody who is at the same time probably the greatest in later Muslim theologian, and somebody who has a very, very moderate approach to the religion. He is a mufti, which means a religious scholar who has to give opinions about everything, every aspect of the religion, every problem arising in society. And so he is, because of his role in society, he is obliged to develop a very supple understanding of the religion. And he is a pragmatist. You could even say that he is a relativist in some way, because what is good in those circumstances becomes bad in other circumstances. And religion has got to be understood in a way that will lead to the most efficient service to mankind. Injustice has to be fought, yes. But that's what you read in the Gospels as well, when you remember what happened to the traders of the temple. And injustice, of course, is not acceptable, no more by Muslims than by Christians, and vice versa, or other religions. But he says that there are cases where we have to be able to accept a lesser evil in order to attack a greater evil. And he says, for example, intelligence is not doesn't consist in being able to distinguish good from bad. Intelligence consists in being able to see the best of two goods and the worst of two evils.
Wow.
And so we have somebody who is far more moderate, far more intelligent, far more acquaintance with the everyday life of the society in which he lives, what people say about him usually.
Well, then I want to thank you again on behalf of all the people that have benefited from your resurrection of the writing strength of Ibn Taymiyyah, so that he would be better understood in his greatness and not be disparaged for some occasional writing.
Somebody like Ibn Taymiyyah should be rediscovered because if he is misused by people we cannot agree with, how do we deal with this problem? You can, if we want to use a metaphor, you can say that terrorism is a cancer. I don't consider that the antidote to cancer is diabetes. And some forms of Islamic hyper-spirituality that we see developing around are for me some kind of spiritual diabetes. It is not to get reformed, as some people say, oh, Muslims should go through some kind of reformation. No, it is to rediscover in its rich spectrum of potentialities, intellectual, spiritual potentialities, the great tradition of Islam.
Thank you, Doctor, and I want you to know that the Catholic Church is so grateful for the dialogue that we have been able to maintain with Islam, especially through people like the Islamic Cultural Center at Fresno. And thank you for coming here from Connecticut to share with us your insights, your study, and your commitment to scholarship.
Professeur Yahya Michaud, salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Alors on vous reçoit pour la première fois dans les studios d'Oumma, donc vous êtes bien entendu le bienvenu.
C'est un plaisir d'être.
Et je vais vous laisser vous présenter, tout simplement.
Bon, pour faire bref, je suis professeur Yahya Michaud, depuis 6 ans professeur de pensée islamique et de relations islamo-chrétiennes au Hartford Seminary, dans l'État de Connecticut aux États-Unis, et aussi le co-éditeur du journal académique The Muslim World. Avant de passer aux États-Unis, en 2008, j'étais pendant 10 ans professeur à l'université d'Oxford au Royaume-Uni, et avant 1998, j'étais professeur à l'université de Louvain en Belgique. Je suis d'origine belge, musulman depuis les années 75. Walhamdulillah ala hada.
Très bien. Alors, on vous connaît beaucoup pour l'intérêt que vous portez sur un personnage très célèbre dans le monde musulman qui est Ibn Taymiyyah. Et vous avez beaucoup de travaux donc sur ce personnage-là. Donc, la première question que j'ai envie de vous poser, pourquoi autant d'intérêt?
C'est venu presque par hasard. J'ai fait ma thèse de doctorat sur Avicenne, Ibn Sina, le philosophe, qui reste aussi un des penseurs sur lesquels je travaille. Et un jour, j'ai eu l'occasion de lire un texte d'Ibn Taymiyyah dans lequel j'ai vu qu'il disait exactement ce que j'avais essayé de démontrer dans ma thèse de doctorat. Il devait donc être bon. Depuis lors, j'ai découvert que ce en quoi je crois en tant que musulman, il explique beaucoup mieux que je ne saurais jamais le faire.
Et c'était en quelle année?
Ça a été dans les années 84, 85, quelque chose comme ça.
D'accord. Et donc, si vous pouvez dire en même temps un petit mot sur vos travaux depuis?
Mais depuis, j'ai continué à travailler sur Avicenne, j'ai publié différentes choses le concernant, j'ai eu la chance de trouver un texte de lui qui était perdu depuis le XIIe siècle, donc inutilisé, la Risala al-Wazir Abi Sa'd al-Hamadani, mais plus concrètement, je crois, j'ai aussi beaucoup plus travaillé sur Ibn Taymiyyah parce que il y a directement un intérêt pour les musulmans d'aujourd'hui à fréquenter sa pensée, d'autant plus que très souvent il est mal compris.
J'ai vu aussi que vous aviez commencé une traduction des fatawas de Cheikh Ibn Taymiyyah.
Ça fait à peu près 20 ans maintenant parce que j'ai besoin de ma dose d'arabe hebdomadaire, sinon je ne me sens pas bien, je traduis, je retraduis, je commente et j'introduis des textes choisis d'Ibn Taymiyyah qui ont été publiés d'abord dans la revue Le Musulman de l'Association des étudiants musulmans de France, à l'époque où elle était active, comme série de textes spirituels. Puis, à la demande de frères de l'île Maurice, il y a eu une série de pages spirituelles d'Ibn Taymiyyah. Depuis que je suis aux États-Unis, j'ai commencé une nouvelle série de textes spirituels d'Ibn Taymiyyah que je mets directement sur Internet sans passer par le papier.
Très bien. Alors, on va maintenant parler donc du personnage central, Ibn Taymiyyah. Alors, pour commencer, si vous pouvez nous parler de ses origines, de sa jeunesse et aussi de la grande famille Taymiya.
Il est né en 1263 de l'ère courante à Harran, dans le sud-est de la Turquie aujourd'hui, et il est mort en 1328 de l'Hégire, à Damas, en détention dans la citadelle de Damas, après avoir vécu principalement en Syrie et de temps en temps en Égypte, où il a aussi été détenu. Il appartenait à une famille de savants hanbalites, mais alors qu'il était encore enfant, vers l'âge de 6 ans, sa famille a dû déménager de Harran vers Damas comme réfugié, menacé par les invasions mongoles qui s'étendaient vers l'est de l'Anatolie.
D'accord, très bien. Vous avez dit qu'il était emprisonné. Pour quelles raisons?
Toute une série de raisons, principalement parce qu'il était considéré comme parlant trop explicitement et trop savamment pour très souvent les savants qui lui étaient contemporains, et de la vie de ses élèves, c'était très souvent simplement des questions de jalousie. Aussi, le contexte politique des rivalités entre les émirs mamelouks qui contrôlaient le sultanat égypto-syrien.
Quels sont les penseurs qui ont le plus influencé Ibn Taymiya à son époque, parce que semble-t-il, ça reste un personnage, bien sûr.
Oui, je crois qu'on n'a pas suffisamment de temps pour en dresser la liste, alors on va aller à l'essentiel. 1. Le prophète, la paix sur lui. Ibn Taymiya réussit toujours à se débarrasser de ses adversaires lors de débats théologiques, parce qu'il est toujours capable de venir avec un hadith que ses interlocuteurs ont négligé. Donc il a une connaissance tout à fait exceptionnelle des différentes collections de hadiths. Il a commenté non seulement Avicenne, mais d'autres textes, Averroès a été commenté par lui. Il connaît très bien l'histoire de la pensée musulmane dans ses différentes disciplines, qu'il s'agisse de kalam, théologie, de philosophie ou de spiritualité. Et le commentaire qu'il a donné de l'épître la plus voltairienne d'Avicenne, la Risala al-Hawiya fi Amr al-Ma'ad, est un commentaire tout à fait étonnant. Il faut se rendre compte que son ouvrage d'art Ta'arud al-Aql wa al-Naql, qui comporte, si je me souviens bien, 13 volumes dans l'édition actuelle, la plus sérieuse, est la meilleure porte d'entrée dont on dispose aujourd'hui pour explorer la falsafa et le kalam mutafalsif, donc la philosophie et la théologie philosophante du XIIIe siècle.
Très bien, merci.
إن أعجبك الفيديو لا تنسى الإعجاب والاشتراك في القناة.